Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman, and welcome to our 117th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Terumah. Parshas Terumah is all about building the Mishkan, building the tabernacle, bringing God down to this world. So that's the whole question, exactly how that works, because you're taking a supreme, omnipresent being and trying to stick him in a box. Well, that's for Kabbalists to decide. What that means and what's going on there. But the Torah, I wanted to focus on the ark, something about the ark. The Torah says, chapter 25, verse 11, it says, you shall cover it, meaning the ark, with pure gold, from within, from without, you shall cover it. So the Talmud tells us that any Talmud Chacham who's inside is not like his outside, meaning that what he says is who he is. Pretty much, he's not a Talmud Chacham, right? He's not a rabbinic scholar. That means that a rabbinic scholar, his insides, right, his essence of who he is, right, has to be somebody that represents Torah, somebody that learns Torah, someone that keeps mitzvahs, etc. And he's recognized on the outside as a Talmud Chacham. People recognize him that he's a Torah scholar. So, how do we recognize that? How are we supposed to see that? So we see by how he acts in prayer, in blessings, and any other thing that he does, he exemplifies the fact that he's a Talmud Chacham, that he is a rabbinic scholar. Because the reality is, if he's only wise when it comes to learning Torah, but his acts of what he does is not in tune with the knowledge that he has, that's not having gold on the outside. He's not considered a real rabbinic scholar because the outside and the inside don't match. So it says, Mori Rebbe, Rav Agon Moshe Shlita should be well, brings down in Chochmah V'Daz, he brings down this whole thing, right? That we spoke about, he brings this down, and he says, if you want to recognize who a Talmud Chacham is, who a real rabbinic scholar is, you have to see how he acts. Yeah, how he makes blessings, how he keeps Shabbos, how he deals with his family, like all these different things. Right? Because if he only learns Torah, we'll get into this more. Right? If he only learns Torah, but he may have book knowledge, but if he doesn't act properly, then the book knowledge doesn't really mean a whole lot. So Rebbe here brings down from his Rebbe, Rav Moshe Schneider, Zecher Tzadik Levrachim, may his name be blessed, who was his Rosh Yeshiva in England. He brings down that someone who learns Torah, it's not enough just to learn Torah. Right? In other words, if he learns Torah, but it's not clear that he has Yirah Shamayim, right? That he has fear of heaven, then says Rav Moshe Schneider, we mentioned this many times, he has the status of what we call a frummer student. He looks religious, he's frum, let's say, but he learns Torah like mathematics. He's not a Ben Torah, right? He's not literally the son of Torah. Meaning, he doesn't exemplify the ideals of the Torah. So, Rav Moshe Schneider used to say that Baruch Hashem, there are a lot of Lomdei Torah. There are a lot of people that sit and learn Torah. But B'nai Torah, someone who exemplifies what Torah is, has proper fear of heaven, etc., those we don't have too many. Right? So I guess it's a big knock, right? Because what are we saying? What we're saying is that someone to sit and learn, especially today, you got a lot of people sit and learn. Right? You got thousands of people sitting and learning. That being the case, but how many of them are real B'nai Torah? How many really exemplify the ideals of what the Torah is? He says, meaning that they should have fear of heaven, they should have Yirah Shamayim. He said that we don't have too many. They ask, why should that be? So we'll see. So he says that the Geder, the boundary, the how we're going to judge if this person's a ben Torah, is what he does when he's not learning Torah. Right? If he's not learning Torah, kind of like a ben Ir, right? Someone who lives in the city, right? He lives in the city so people know that's where he lives. Even though when he goes to a town, he goes to, let's say, to another city or, far away. So he's got the status of a ben Torah, because even at night, even before Shabbos, even on intercession, Bein Hazmanim, he acts like a Talmud Chacham. He learns. He learns at times when most people don't. In other words, people aren't seeing him in the city, what he's doing. Right? He's somewhere else, and still, he's finding time to learn, and to act the way the Torah wants. That's called a ben Torah. Because everything he does is for the sake of Torah. And when he's learning in yeshiva, shows he's got Yirah Shamayim, right? It shows he has fear of heaven. And he's not doing it just as mental gymnastics. Right? We're not saying everyone who learns in yeshiva is doing that. But that's the goal. Right? The goal is you want to tell one person from another. See how they act. See how they act when they don't have to learn. What are they doing? Are they wasting their time? Are they doing other things? Or are they learning? Or is it just, well, these are the hours we sit and learn. When I don't sit and learn, I do other things. Right? So obviously that's going to be bad. Question is, when he's not learning, what is he doing? So this gets into the whole idea. Again, we've spoken about different aspects of this, and every time I see something like this, I always feel it's good to harp on, because I think there's a general laxity and laziness when it comes to who's considered a rabbi, because rabbi is a generic term, which means someone who's a teacher, but at the same time, when we're talking about somebody, you can have a lot of people that teach. It doesn't necessarily mean that teacher themselves is a rabbinic scholar. The goal of learning is to change us. The goal of learning is, even if it's not easy, even if we come to a situation where we may end up losing money, the question is, are we going to act according to the Torah? We're going to try and skirt the issue. We're going to try and get around it. So, unfortunately, there are a lot of unscrupulous people, out there going under this guise. Conversion rabbis, other type of rabbis, etc. There's some rabbis out there doing conversion. We'll just mention conversion for a second. That the conversions are only acceptable to them. Meaning no one else accepts them. So my obvious question would be, if you don't make it universal where it should be accepted by everybody, or as many people as possible, and you're only saying, I don't care, as long as I know what I'm doing, everyone else really doesn't matter, that's a major red flag. So that's called being gaivadik. That's called, being conceited. Saying it's my way or the highway. Okay, you don't have to like it, so what? You absolutely don't have to like it. But you're saying that these people are Jews. If you say that these people are Jews, and no one else recognizes them, what service are you doing for them? Right? It's a major problem. I remember when I was in Chile, there was someone running around selling, wine that was washed by non-Shomer Shabbos Jews. Right, which makes the wine yain nesek, no one should drink it. So it's one thing, what you do in your own house. It's another thing what you do for the masses. In other words, you should have integrity. You should have integrity in that if you're going to produce something for the masses, it should be top line. I mean, why in the world would you let someone who doesn't keep Shabbos watch the wine? Major problem. So you can have people that are unscrupulous. And the reality is they may not care. Again, regardless of what you do in your own house. I don't care what you do in your own house. You keep higher levels of kashrus, lower levels of kashrus, whatever you want. But don't mess up the masses. Don't go around doing things that you shouldn't be doing, that no one should rely on. Why would you do it? Well, one good reason probably is money. Right? Another reason, right? Someone may put their name on kashrus, let's say, and say these things are kosher, and they bring in a ritual slaughter, a shochet, that's not allowed to kill animals in his own country. What does that tell you? It's a major red flag. So you're using somebody that's not relied on in his own country, to kill animals, and you're putting your name on that. That looks pretty bad. So again, in your own house, do what you want. For the masses, you have to try and hold the higher standard. I mean, every kashrus organization has, they have kulas, they have things that they rely on. They have leniencies. That's the word I was looking for. They have leniencies. Everybody has leniencies that they rely on. At the same time, they're not starting out that way. If this should happen or that should happen, what do you do? If it's going to cause a major loss or whatever, there could be. There are leniencies to rely on. But if someone's going to kill the cows or the chickens and he's not reliable where in his own country, why in the world would you use them? Well, it's better I put my name on it, people eat it. It doesn't make any sense. It means the tone in your mind is cracked, or you yourself are cracked. Because, if something's wrong, you cannot allow other people to fall by the wayside because, you want to be lenient or you want to put your name on it and you want to rely on this person. One thing, very often is seriously lacking is integrity. That people are willing to stand up for ideals. Today, people, my language, I grew up in Boston, my language, most people are a bunch of wusses. They're afraid to stand up for anything. God forbid, they may say this, or, how are we going to get, how are we going to marry off my kids? God forbid, afraid to say anything. Right? There are times you got to make a stand. You can't be run by a board. You can't be run by, other people think, oh, you're a fanatic, you're this, you're that. There are times you got to stand up. And God's going to take notice, because if you don't stand up when you should, the repercussions could be much greater. Right? Which reminds me of the story that, as my Rebbe once gave class, someone came to him and asked him a question, and the question was that they were making a abomination parade, in the streets of Jerusalem, and where this person learns, it was going right by his yeshiva, where he learns. So he said, what should we do? So my Rebbe looked at him and said, what, do you think you should be handing out lollipops or ice cream? No, you should be out there protesting, saying to him, you don't confront. You don't say anything. You sit there and learn, but you have to protest. Right? Something like that, an abomination in the very heart of Jerusalem, and you say nothing, repercussions are much greater. Right? There's no question. So sometimes, even if it may cost you your job, you have to be willing to stand up for Torah. And if you're a Rav, you have to have a backbone. And it may not be popular, right? You definitely may not be popular. But this world is not about being popular. This world is about truth. This world is about standing up for truth. And there's a lot of falsehood that exists. And the falsehood that exists, we got to push out. And we got to call it out. And if someone's a Mickey Mouse rabbi, you got to call him out. Because we don't need people like that. They're causing people to go astray. They're watering down Torah, going against what Torah says. I mean, you got left-wing rabbis saying, Orthodox rabbis, saying there's nothing wrong with homosexuality. Welcome them to the club. Welcome them to shul in synagogue. Give them honors in synagogue. So my language, what are you off your cotton picking head? The Torah says it's forbidden. You're going to glorify it? Say, no, we're going to try and be makarvim. We're going to try and work with them. There's not much to do. What you're doing is you're saying their lifestyle is permitted. So the person can say, I'm not necessarily saying that, but I want to make them feel comfortable. Someone's an axe murderer. Give him all the honors in shul after he gets out of jail. If he's a pedophile and does other heinous things, welcome him with all arms. In Israel, there's a saying, Yesh Gvul. There's a boundary. Right? How far do we have to go? If you want to understand where the Jewish people are holding, it's not hard to see. I mean, there's a tremendous amount in Israel, unfortunately. This joke goes on in the government, with desecration of Shabbos, where things are open, things are being built. The government will say, no, it's pikuach nefesh, it's, it's important things, you can't do it any other time. It's all a crock, it's a game. It's a game. So therefore, we, if this is going on in the palace of the king, what do you think that the king is going to do? So you're going to say, listen, I don't live in Israel. And if I did live in Israel, what can I do? Right? We can protest. We can get out there and say, this isn't right. At least say it's not right. Show some sort of protest against. Because if you don't show anything against, then what's going to happen? Then God's going to say, oh, you think it's okay. When I once asked my Rebbe this, and I said, well, you think you accomplished anything? And he said, I'm not going to get upstairs after 120 years, and God himself is going to say, you know what? How come you didn't protest? How come you didn't do something? So at the end of the day, he says it's not going to be on my conscience. Person lives outside of Israel, you got to feel the pain. Send emails to the government, blow up their phones. Do something. Don't just say, well, what can I do? We live in a democracy. Right? This is what the democracy is. It's insane. Because the repercussions and the punishment are that much greater. So when it comes to things like this, someone who's a true rabbinic scholar has to show who he is. By the way he acts, by the way he learns, by what he does, not during the time he's obligated to learn. By that, we see if he's true to himself and to the Torah or not. Because, someone will say, listen, I learn according to the hours of my schedule of learning. What do you do outside that? So I'm busy playing racquetball. I don't know, people still play racquetball? I don't know, I'm out busy playing tennis. Yeah, I'm doing other things when I'm not learning. This is the time I learn, this is the time I don't. So when I'm off, I'm off. So that's the difference. Right? That is the difference between someone who learns and is a real rabbinic scholar, or someone, my language, who's a pretender. Right? He doesn't have fear of heaven. It comes on the Rabbeinu B'chaye. The Rabbeinu B'chaye over here says, my Rebbe points out, he brings down a mashal, brings down a parable, and he says the words of Torah are like glass. Right? You can't put glass and gold together. It says in Job chapter 28 verse 17 to teach you, just like glass is pure, is transparent, and you can see yourself what's that which is within. Meaning, like right now, I'm looking at the screen, what do I see? I see me. I don't see anyone else. I see me. Right? When you look in the mirror, you see yourself. So too, and you see who you are. Boy, gotta get this gray hair off. Anyway, so too a rabbinic scholar, his insights, who he is, what he thinks about, has to be similar to who he is on the outside. And that other people who see him, they'll say, wow, they'll get fear of heaven just by seeing such a person. Just like person sees through the glass. So as the Talmud says, when Gamliel put up a shomer, put up a guard in front of the base medrash, in front of the study hall, and he said no one's allowed to enter if somebody enters that their insides are not like their outsides. Meaning, who they are represents what they do, or what they do represents who they are, let's say, from within and from without. If they don't have that, you don't let them come in. So according to this, the Talmud says that a person like this, it's easy to recognize whether he has fear of heaven or not. So the Rambam says that a wise person is recognized for his wisdom, for his knowledge, and he's separated from the rest of the people. So too, he's recognized by his actions, by the way he eats, by the way he drinks, right? Everything he does, how he speaks, how he walks, what he wears. He's different, right? Somebody like that, they have a different aura on them. I've had the merit to see some very great people. They're different. They look different. They glow in a different way than the rest of us. So he says, a person can't just learn. Right? A person can't just learn for the sake of learning and that it's nice to learn. At the same time, he's got to learn even when he doesn't have to learn. That shows something. Right? That shows fear of heaven. So, unfortunately, as Rabbi Schneider said, we don't have too many that are B'nai Torah, that exemplify Torah and what Torah is when they're not learning. So I always get razzed a little bit, go on vacation, my family, so, we'll be somewhere. You think people dress a little more relaxed, even though it might be like 150 degrees. Last summer we were up north, it was pretty hot, so you'll still see me outside, my hat and jacket. I mean, obviously not at the beach, whatever, but, that's it. That's the uniform, right? It doesn't change just because you're not in your own, black and white community. Even though you're outside that, so what? Doesn't mean you don't have to dress a certain way. Right? They say, I got a few days free, I'm going to be with the family, so I'm going to totally dress down. Jeans, t-shirt, we're going to have some fun. It depends what you're doing. Painting the house, you buy the beach, it's one thing. You're outside with the masses, you have an image to uphold. Doesn't matter where you're holding. Whether, it just looks the part. Whatever. Right? That could be just me. Right? Every so often I'll see someone, like that also. Says, oh, look, someone else like that. Right? But at the same time, at the same time, you have a certain persona you have to give over. And it's not like, it's just externals. Not just externals. Right? Because, people are going to perceive us by what we do. By how we act. Right? If we're among non-Jews or we're among, secular Israelis, then you have an obligation to even go beyond what you should do. To make sure you don't desecrate God's name. because you represent Torah. So therefore you want to show who you are on the inside, on the outside. What you think, what you do, they're the same. So my Rebbe points out, interesting, he says, you can recognize somebody by what they do. Right? What they do, how they eat, how they drink. Different things that they do. So I remember many years ago, I brought my Rebbe to speak in this kollel, this kollel that I had. And when I went to pick him up, so I took two of my kids. And when I went to get him, he was finishing eating, and he said, "All right, I'm ready to go." He said, "I just have to bench to say grace after meals, right? And then then we'll go." So I said, "Fine." So we sat there and waited, and my kids were in awe. I mean, they were little. They were 6, 7, something like that. And to my older kids, like they were in awe seeing how such a person, clarity, every word, said it methodically, didn't rush, this, that. Made an impression. Right? The blessing that he made makes an impression. Somebody who prays like that makes an impression. All the things that they do, how they speak, what they wear, all these different things. So therefore it can be recognizable. It can be recognizable, someone who is a true rabbinic scholar. Right? And again, it goes by what they do, what they say. The actions have to fit what's in the heart, what's inside. If not, then the learning that they do is not worth spit, my language. It's not worth anything. Because they're not giving over what they need to do. They're just learning for the sake of mental gymnastics, which Rav Moshe Schneider said, you learn through something that's mental gymnastics, that is called a frummer student. It's like you're learning mathematics. Did you get merit for learning mathematics? Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. Is that really considered learning Torah, even if you're learning Torah? It's something. Not necessarily Torah, though. You say, wow, how do you know? Maybe, somebody's learning, and they're really not doing it for the right reason. Could be. It could be. But at the end of the day, what we do shows who we are. I once spoke in my kollel and I asked a theoretical question. My theoretical question was, I gave a shmooze, my theoretical question was, why do we sit and learn? Right? Why do we sit and learn after marriage? People looked at me like I was crazy. What do you mean, why do you sit and learn after marriage? Well, you do. Why? I know that's what people do. Why? And if you're not making a lot of money, you better understand why you're doing it. So the house, when a person's first married, is built on Torah. And if a person, if the husband's sitting and learning, so the house is a different type of house. The house looks different. So that being the case, we're not learning after marriage because that's what everyone does. We're not doing it because I want to marry in a prestigious family, right? I want to get a good shidduch. A person wants to get a good marriage partner. Fame and all that, or not fame, but genealogy, good genealogy, whatever. That's not Torah either. What that just means is you're going through the motions. And going through the motions is not where we want to be. Yeah, you have to do it, but you have to realize why. You have to realize what the purpose is. And regardless of what's going on around you, you have to put your all in it. And if you don't, then you just be doing things by rote. See, and the person has a family and they have kids, the kids will see right through it. Kids are very good at seeing, what you do and how you do things. So, all the mistakes you make get amplified. Right? We're not perfect, true. Right? But kids can tell when you're sincere, when you're not sincere. Can you fake being sincere? You could. But see, what comes out of the heart is going to be what the person is. And if a person gives over non-sincerity, that's what it is. So that we certainly have to be careful of. And again, and that doesn't matter what we're going through. A person comes home and, doesn't really speak. Is tired. Doesn't really have so much connection, to his kids. Takes some time to unwind and this and that. Kids see that. Right? It's the person's fault, not the kid's fault. Kid wants to share his day, wants to share this, wants to share that. Right? There's something deeper going on. Someone told me that, I'm preparing for this wedding for my daughter in another, about 10 days or so. So someone told me that regardless of everything going on, whatever it is, all the craziness, and that's what it, that's what it is. Because I got mostly girls, so it's all kinds of craziness going on. But so you got to remember one thing. It's a tremendous time of joy. It's a tremendous time of simcha, right? So put aside everything else, all the other difficulties, whatever they may be, and enjoy. Right? Hopefully, it only comes around once. It is a tremendously trying time. It feels like it's right before it's right before Passover, like a month and a half before. Then we got fun after Purim. You start cleaning for Passover. So from the fire to the frying pan, or frying pan to the fire, whatever it is. So, you got to enjoy also. You got to see the goodness. You got to realize what we have. I speak to a lot of people. I'm in contact with a lot of people. And, there are a lot of situations people are in that are just horrible. Let's just say physical issues. If you have trouble getting out of bed, can't concentrate, can't this. All kinds of things. We got to be thankful for what we have. Regardless how difficult it is and what the situation is. Nobody realizes, no one is so appreciative until they don't have it. So we got to take stock of all this also, take a step back, give us time to think a little bit, take a few minutes, and realize the goodness that we have. Because we're not here in this world very long. And we have plenty what to fetch about. We have plenty what to complain about. And we're very good at that. But when's the last time, and I'm not taking a survey here, when's the last time somebody said, God, I got it very difficult, but, I love being alive. I love keeping your Torah. I love doing, what I need to do, even if it's hard, even if you make it hard. How many of us are at that level? That's the true Torah Hashkafa. Whatever God puts us through, it's for our benefit. That's what we believe. God's not a sadist. He's not putting us through things because, He wants to punish us. He may have to. If we don't do what He wants, He may have to. So we have to look at what goes on in the world, into ourselves, in a little bit different way. So, Rebbe then brings a story from the Chazon Ish that someone had the famous Rav Avraham Mishaya Karlitz, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May his name be blessed. The greatest rabbi of the last generation here in Israel. Died many years ago. That someone was interested in a certain shidduch, was looking for a husband for his daughter. And he said, how do I know if he's got Yiras Shamayim? How do I know if this boy has fear of heaven? So Chazon Ish answered, he said, I can't, it's not in your hands to know. But he said, go to where he learns and see how he prays. You want to see fear of heaven? Watch how he prays. Does he pray with fervor? Or does he just pray just to get it over with? So he tells a lot about a person. Right? How they act. Again, we're not just talking about externals. How a person acts, they make blessings, how they walk down the street, how they speak to their kids, everything that people can see. It's not just, I want to show how impressive I am, so I'm going to do this for show. Someone to be the real deal, you got to show it. You got to show that's who you are on the inside. And if on the inside, even if you learn a lot of Torah, and you understand a lot of Torah, but on the outside your character traits are a Shrek. They are disgusting. That means the Torah hasn't sunk in. That means it's a problem. You cannot have one without the other. I had a great rabbi once tell me that he learned by somebody for a certain amount of time. And this person, he said, was an absolute Talmudic genius. Unbelievable Talmudic genius. He had one major flaw, though. One major flaw was his character traits were abominable. Not just bad. They were abominable. And he said he didn't last very long learning by such a person. Man was brilliant. Unbelievable Torah knowledge. Character traits, he's a pig. In general. How can it be? Right? How can somebody sit all day, or most of the day, sits and learns Musar, ethics, gives over to others? How can his character traits be a Shrek? Answer, well, they may have personal problems. That certainly could be. That have to be worked out. But it means that the Torah that they learn is just like learning mathematics. And it doesn't affect their life. Give an example. Someone was telling me that they lived in a certain apartment. There were problems, and problem with the owner of the apartment and different things. And this person when he prayed every day, 3 times a day, when it came to the paragraph of the Shemona Esrei about judgment, he had this person in mind. God, you should do judgment with him. Comes along the Talmud says, you're not allowed to do that. Because if you do that, God's going to open your file first. Say, oh, you think this guy's so bad? He may be. He certainly may be. But you wanna call him out? You want God to open up his file? God says, I'm going to open up your file first. Now, it may not seem fair. Because the reality is, this person may have done nasty things. But you're not allowed to pray that. The only thing you're allowed to do is, when you come to that paragraph, you say, God should do judgment. That's it. You don't have anybody in mind. You're not allowed to have anybody in mind. Because if you have anybody in mind, you're in trouble. Doesn't mean we can't pray our enemies get destroyed. But I wish this person dies. Not allowed to do that. Right? The whole question Tom would ask, are you allowed to pray for someone to die? Someone who's suffering. Not talking about, your enemy or whatever. Right? Someone who's suffering. Are you allowed to pray that God should just take them so they don't suffer? But what about an enemy? Right? There's a contradiction. One place it says you're allowed to be happy when they fall. Another place says you're not allowed to. Right? The whole question, how to answer that. So why do I tell the first story? So I tell the first story because when the person came to this Gemara, came to this Talmud, he had to change. It made him change. Because it wasn't right. The Talmud says you're not allowed to do that, and that's what we hold. You're not allowed to praise for that person gets judged severely. Now, he may deserve it. Doesn't matter what he did. we believe beyond the shadow of a doubt, people that do things to us, cause us damage, God will take care of them. You don't have to worry about it. God will take care of them. If He doesn't take care of them now, He'll take care of them later. If they don't die a horrific death, don't worry. They'll get everything in this world, they'll get nothing in the next. It's just hard when, a person's been, damaged tremendously, and the other person seems to get off scot-free. Right? It's a little bit hard. But that is the Torah philosophy. So why do I bring all this up? Right? I seem to harp on it a lot. People say, oh, here he goes. Think about rabbis and fake rabbis and all that. See, what it does is it clouds people's minds about what Torah really is. It'll say, I have this proof, that proof, and the other proof, and everyone else is wrong, and you can all go to hell. Well, the person's not a rabbi, he's an idiot. Right? You're not going to take stock in someone like that. But at the same time, it causes damage. Because the people out there doing good things calls everyone into question. If we say, oh, you do conversions, which I don't, right? I only prepare people for conversion. At the same time, people who prepare people for conversion or whatever do underhanded things, makes everybody look bad. Right? So even if you stay squeaky clean, other people can try and ruin it. Not necessarily on purpose, that's what they do. Right? So these people have to be called out. And insult Lashon Hara. Because these people are Rishoyim. So I'm doing it for the sake of heaven. Good luck. Yeah, for the sake of heaven in your own mind. Torah created in your own mind. I'm right, the rest of the world can go to hell. And everyone else is wrong. What does that tell you? It tells you that the person is a whack job. He's got a big ego. Totally conceited in himself. That's not Torah. People like that, you stay away from like the plague. Right? Stay away from like the plague. They ain't going to help you get to the next world, I can promise you that. Right? It's like following a false god. False prophet. So, if they're not the same on the outside as they are on the inside, big problem. That means the Torah hasn't entered. That means that we're looking at, it's an unbelievable phenomenon. Because a lot of people have credentials, or seemingly credentials, but when you break it down, the credentials just aren't there. They're more like Frummer studenti. Even if they know how to learn. Right? They learn, but it's not part of their life. They haven't worked on perfecting themselves enough where it's gonna transform them. Because before a person can give over to others, even if he's not perfect, which many of us aren't, nonetheless, a person has to know themselves. A person has to be able to take the knowledge and be able to give it over at another person's level. And not everyone is equipped to do that. Very few people, are very good at doing that. But yeah, you have to show who you are. Who you are from the inside is who you are on the outside. That doesn't change. And therefore, our goal, right? Our goal is to, is to learn as much as we can, to be the greatest people that we can, but to be true to the Torah, to the ideals of the Torah, and not learn it like a student. So I want to remind people, I put up a website. Anyone interested, I can send you a walkthrough. Website is $20 a month, and it's class in Jewish history. There's a class. These aren't live classes. I'm going to start doing live classes soon. Figure out exactly how we're going to do it. There are classes on the ways of the righteous. There's a class in Jewish history, working our way through the Second Temple period. After the Second Temple period, we just finished, put up a an audio about Greece and Hellenism. I think is interesting. I also give conversion classes, Noahide classes. I have 2 question and answer sessions, one on Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning, New York time, one on Thursday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, New York time. Anybody can come. It's on Facebook Live. I have a class in Duties of the Heart once a week, every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. I also have a class in Path of the Just. That is not a live class. That is a audio. Anyone interested can join that as well. You can take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or Beyond Noahides, and you can take a look at my blog, orthodoxconversion.com. And anyone interested, you can send me an email, rabbichaimkoffman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wishing everyone a great Shabbos.